Welcome to Westworld FM, a podcast about HBO's Westworld. My name is Alex.
And my name is Nick.
Today we will be discussing the season finale of Season 1 of Westworld, titled The Bicameral Mind. And obviously there's no next time on preview, so we don't even have to not discuss it for you guys. But we will be spoiling everything through episode 10 of the series, so please pause and go catch up if you're not current on the show. You can find more of our episodes on westworld.fm. We're also Westworld FM on Twitter, and you can send feedback to westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. Next week, we are planning on doing a season wrap-up show. I've got a few irons in the fire for that one in terms of what we're going to be doing, but we would like to talk with you guys about it too. So if you want to send us any feedback, any questions that you still have, that kind of stuff, please do that, and we will definitely talk about it next week. So one other thing, I did interview Kate Renee Gleason, who plays the surveillance tech in episodes 4, 6, and 8 of this season of Westworld. So if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and check it out. It's pretty sweet. I posted it yesterday before the finale, and I even asked her a question that I put some hope out there that she would eventually get a scene with Anthony Hopkins, but that seems unlikely now. However, we can talk about that in a little bit. So, please go check that out. I think it was a lot of fun, and it was fantastic talking to her, and hopefully she gets to be in more Westworld, and hopefully we get to talk to her about that again. So,
yeah, agreed on both counts.
Yes. So last week I lied and said we didn't have any iTunes reviews. We actually had 2 of them at the time. J Shep 001 says, this podcast is one of the best out there in Westworld. Happy it exists to fill the dead space between Sundays. Thank you, J Shep. Tree PDR says, consistently engaging. This is one of 3 Westworld podcasts I listen to, and it always adds something new to what I've already heard and have thought of myself. These guys epitomize what I like about good podcasting: knowledgeable, humorous, and good-natured. Also check out their Preacher Cast. Thank you, Tree PDR.
Yeah, what a lovely review.
That was a fantastic review. That's what we seek to do in our recap podcast. So thank you very much. I'm glad we are succeeding at that for you. Ryan Spats 9 says, excellent, great job helping us keep up. You're quite welcome, Ryan. And we've got Tutoring Ace, friend of the Midwest Film Nerds podcast. He says, the Midwest Podcast Network amazes me. These guys, this now makes 5 great shows this group of fellas, one of their wives and a wiener dog put on. A great show, tons of fun. Westworld needs explaining, and I feel like these guys do it really well. That's Jason, who we have an email from later, so thank you, Jason. And then Phil Totola here says, great find. I'm totally hooked on Westworld, and this show is a great supplement to every episode. There's a great mix of recap, theory, and discussion, and the chemistry between the hosts keeps each podcast fun and interesting. Keep them coming, guys. We will, just for you, Phil.
Oh, all right.
So thank you guys for the iTunes reviews, but reviews and ratings on iTunes make us more visible to other people, to people that don't listen to us yet. So please go do that. Even in the off season, we need all the help we can get to be even bigger than we currently are. So
yep.
Thank you guys for rating and reviewing us. So last week we had no feedback, so now we have a lot of feedback.
We called them out.
We did. We called you guys out on it, and you guys definitely showed up, which is fantastic. Fred says, hey guys, what's up with there being no questions from your listeners? The last podcast, I've done my part to help remedy that. He's got a few theories here, so we can debunk them live, essentially.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Man in Black, he mentions that the maze has come full circle in relation to Escalante being the town at the center of the maze. Does that mean that this is where he had his first awakening to his true nature and became the Man in Black? Maybe this is where William evolved. I think this episode shows that that's not true. It happens after he visits Escalante. It's kind of the point where those cogs are turning, but that's not exactly... I think he just talks about it coming full circle as it takes him back to where he came when he first visited the park.
I think Escalante is kind of the beginning of his loop, so to speak, because up until they get there, it's always him and like a merry band of friends. And I think Escalante is where the first time it's just him and Dolores, like striking out on their own, because that's where they part ways with
El Lazo.
El Lazo, yeah. I almost called him Clifton.
Clifton, yeah. Well, no, Clifton Collins Jr.
Isn't that where they first start together though?
They start heading there, yeah.
Okay.
So like they're on their way to Escalante when they leave El Lazo.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of their, that's their first foray off of her loop, pretty much. Kind of. I don't know. It's also a previous loop. This show's confusing, but Dolores. By the way, what was up with all those bodies in the lab underneath the church? Could Dolores be remembering the aftermath of her rampage where she killed the host and Arnold? We know that there was an incident 30 years ago, but not what exactly. Could the incident be a reference to her losing control and murdering? And to add another layer to that, what if she murdered Arnold on the orders of Dr. Ford? Dun, dun, dun. You are half right and half wrong, as we learned in the series finale. Teddy is Wyatt. Could it be that Teddy... No, Teddy's not Wyatt. We know that now.
Nope.
I'm not even going to read that one, but thank you for writing it. Dr. Ford really did care for Arnold, I think. Why else would he bring him back? There seems to be something sentimental there. He could have created any host to help him with the park, but he wanted a host in the likeness of his friend. With that being said, has he put Dolores in such a brutal storyline where she watches her family murdered, is used for sexual assault bait and for brutal hosts and guests, and has an unfulfilled love with Teddy, who is forced to continuously watch her brutalized within her storyline because she was responsible for his friend's death? In a way, yes.
Yeah, we kind of said... We were kind of on that trail a couple episodes back.
A little bit,
it's kind of the theory.
But with the revelations about Ford in this episode, he has realized that suffering is what makes the hosts gain consciousness.
Right.
So putting her in that loop to have those things to remember, those are all the scenes that we see her flash back in, are the ones where people are getting hurt in front of her, she's getting hurt, that kind of thing. All of those memories allow her to become or gain consciousness.
I think he has a very complicated relationship with Doris, or Dolores, whoever Doris is also.
That's the second time, because you have a friend named Doris.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we brought that up in the past. Anyway,
I think it's kind of a combination of both. He does want her to achieve that consciousness, to reach the end of the maze, but I think it's also because when she says, I always come back to that line, "Are we very old friends?" And he says, "No, I wouldn't say that at all." Like there's definitely some hatred, I would say, but also woven in with kind of appreciation, sort of, in the way that she has kind of become their finest creation.
Well, and the way that I kind of see that scene now after this episode, I kind of see Ford saying that they're not friends makes me think that he realizes that she is essentially their superior. Like she symbolizes this, not only symbolizes, but actually embodies the successor to humans. Yeah,
they are as was said many times by many different characters throughout the show, that they are the people that are yet to come.
Yep. Yeah.
I think again, and it's complex. It's a complex line. Like Nolan's loved to do that. Lines with 2-3 meanings sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. Like the well-tempered clavier.
Yeah, and there are really no simple relationships in this show anyway. No. But I think that one is one of the most interesting, one of the most complex, and as we know, it comes to incredible finale in this episode.
Yep, absolutely. Fred goes on to say, Maeve, oh my God, I'm so over her storyline. Sorry, but I'm ready for her to go into cold storage. If Dr. Ford truly has a backdoor code into all the hosts, then he should be able to shut down her rebellion very easily. Or is there a reason that he's letting it unfold? Would you think that he must know about it, considering nothing seems to go on without his knowledge? That's it. Looking forward to the next podcast. Ford absolutely knew what was going on.
And we had the idea that he probably knew.
Yeah.
And either didn't know how to stop it or was letting it unfold, because we realized throughout the series that Ford's pretty omnipotent in the park. Like he kind of knows everything that's happening. So
absolutely. And then Fred did write back. He wrote back 2 more emails. He's got one here. He wanted to know what was up with Logan wearing the Hand of the King pen on his jacket. It's very similar to Game of Thrones after he became like the Confederado general.
Oh yeah, I did see that on Reddit.
So just a cute little nod there. But he does have this theory about Arnold and his death. Basically about he does theorize here at the end. He says maybe the hosts that Ford is printing in his basement are tests to see if he can create a host without the Arnold code. That's doesn't seem true.
No, I don't think it would matter.
And just to note, supposedly Lisa Joy came out and said that was just for creepy ambiance.
And Jonathan said that he said it was just a prop.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's true. I mean that may be true, but it's their own little. They can make that be whoever they want to in season 2 if they decide to.
But the thing that
they gave themselves kind of an option there to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it could be they could kind of retcon it into something if they want to.
Definitely.
One thing that I will note is that Joanna Robinson once again had a good interview with Jimmy Simpson that she put out last night after the episode aired, and he stated he figured out that he was the Man in Black very early on in the season because somebody in the makeup chair asked if they could pluck some eyebrows out for him. So they could thin out his eyebrows. He's like, why would they do that unless they're trying to make me look like somebody else?
Sure.
And he put it all together, and then he went to Lisa Joy and was like, am I the Man in Black? And she was like, you need to not tell anybody anything. So then he went back to her and was like, how do I talk about that? HBO wants us live tweeting the episodes. How am I supposed to do that? If I comment on things the Man in Black does, are people going to take that as confirmation? And she was like, you don't need to do anything different than what you're doing, but do not lie to anybody. Just,
either omit the truth.
Yeah. So part of me wants to believe that Lisa Joy wouldn't lie about that host being nothing in Ford's basement. But as you said, they could very easily decide later on to be like, well,
I think right now it's
use.
nothing.
Yeah.
But it has to be something. He's not just making them for shits and giggles and
that's
his secret.
And that's something that I think the Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul team have done really well with doing, particularly on Better Call Saul, is finding the holes and gaps in Breaking Bad that they can fill.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was somebody charting out all of the loose threads or open items in season 1 of Westworld for them to be able to take advantage of later on.
Definitely.
So, Fred, thank you very much for writing into us. Lots of quality emails here.
Yeah, thanks, Fred.
He does have some complaints here about the finale. Maybe we can read that after we go through our recap. My buddy Christo did write in. He's a friend of mine from middle school. He said, earlier this year, I decided to expand my horizons on listening entertainment, and I started listening to various different podcasts. I now listen to 8 podcasts on a fairly regular basis, and I can easily say that the Midwest Film Nerds and Westworld FM are 2 of my favorites. And then, let's see. He says, I will admit I do listen to one other guy's podcast for Westworld. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call him Chavid Den. I don't find it to be nearly as entertaining as you guys are. There's something about hearing genuine laughter during a broadcast that makes it so much better. It's kind of like when the cast of SNL can't help but laugh during their funnier sketches. It creates a feeling that the audience is part of the show, and the comedy aspects and the chemistry you guys share on the Westworld FM is one of the things that made Midwest Film Nerds so great. So thank you, Christo. Very kind words. He says, Alex brought up something this week that I have thought about before, which is how much different an experience it would be for someone who did not listen to podcasts, Reddit, etc., to watch Westworld. To hear you guys elaborate on theories and ideas helps me work out the more confusing aspects of the show. I don't think I'd be nearly as invested in the show if I wasn't able to hear the discussion on the seemingly infinite number of questions the show has to offer. I hope after waiting a year for season 2, you guys will still be up to the task of dissecting what is shaping up to be one of the best TV shows of all time. Keep up the good work. P.S. Alex, you are wrong. Pain and Gain is awesome.
Woo!
Thanks, Christo. Very kind words. And
I wouldn't say Pain and Gain's awesome, but I got some enjoyment out of it. Yeah. I thought it had some awesome moments for sure. But there's a whole episode all about that.
Yeah,
from like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Was that 2013 or 14? Probably 14.
I think it's 13.
It might be.
I think it's 13 because 13 was the first full year that we did on Film Nerds.
I feel like we haven't been angry at each other in at least 3 years.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's probably
that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that's very nice. Thanks. It's always nice to hear when your podcast gets compared to far more successful ones and it comes out better.
Yes.
Well, we have, we're knocking on 51 Twitter followers right now, I think. So watch out.
Yeah, we're coming
halfway to 100.
We got it. We're going. Jason Kimmel did write in. He did have a little comparison here. I'm not going to go quite into it. But if you guys out there listening have not seen Preacher Season 1, it's a fantastic show. He draws a lot of similarities between Preacher Season 1 and Westworld Season 1 in terms of it being like a prequel, essentially, or kind of a primer to set things in motion for the rest of the show, which is very interesting. And I hope we can talk about that a little bit more next week when we go over the season as a whole and look at it with a little bit more of a general eye. Jameson wrote in,
definitely go watch Preacher and listen to our show.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Knowledgeable.
Yep.
Humorous.
There's
good-natured.
rapport. There's laughs.
There's a lot more swearing.
There's a lot more swearing, which is kind of surprising. But
maybe not a lot more. There's more swearing.
Yeah. But anyway, it's Preacher's awesome. People should be watching it.
It is great. I'm very excited for. It's nice. We'll kind of have this like ping pong back and forth of like another season of Preacher, another season of Westworld.
Yep.
It's just gonna kind of keep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Keeping on.
Jameson wrote in. He said, "So I learned a new term last week. Completionist. This term is in reference to those who are committed to finishing video games all the way through. For example, 120 stars in Mario 64, as opposed to hobbyists or casuals, the filthy casuals. That's my addition right there.
Yeah.
In Westworld, William is our completionist. For me, the idea lends a lot of credibility to his character and motives over such a long period. Anytime I feel 30 years is a ridiculous amount of time for such a commitment, I remember that my N64 still sits in a box with Super Mario 64 and a saved file of 118 stars obtained. One day, maybe 30 years from now, I intend to finish that game."
Oh, man, what an awesome story.
That's great. I really love the idea of full circle shows and films that create mysterious threads and near perfectly close all the loops at the end. Film noir as a genre tends to do this very well. Arrival is a great modern example of this type of story, where Lost perhaps demonstrates how easily this type of storytelling can go wrong. Westworld Season 1 is a full circle to me. Sure, we have some minor confusions about the whereabouts of Logan and Elsie, but it is otherwise intrinsically resolved as a season. The themes of the show are profound, and the finale had everything that I had hoped for. So I find myself in the surprising state of not really having a lot of questions or care to theorize, because it all made sense to me. It all comes together. The world is larger, the ideas are intimate. Despite the chaos in the finale, I feel rather at peace and satisfied. Now where the show goes from here is exhilarating because, as Felix says, it's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Jameson. Yeah, I think we mostly agree. We'll talk about that later this episode, I think, but we both enjoyed it quite a bit and feel like it was pretty successful.
Yeah, it was very satisfying.
Yeah. And then just a few other things really quick. I think we'll save some of the other feedback that I have for next week. But Quinn did write in wondering exactly, Quinn wrote in saying maybe some Reddit covered this, but Stubbs has now been attacked twice by hosts. Doesn't that mean he's likely a host? And I wrote back saying, we've seen Teddy shoot at the man in black. William also got shot at. Logan got beaten. Host can seemingly harm but not kill. And then Quinn said, only as part of a scenario, not as an unscripted violence against a human. And I said, well, technically Clementine was scripted too because it was forged by Cullen and Hale, but unscripted or scripted doesn't seem to matter. But personally, I'm a little dissatisfied with how they've handled whether or not hosts can hurt humans. That's what I said. And he said, agreed. I like the near hanging of the man in black. And I said, exactly. But I did enjoy people saying that the tree was a host. Did you read about that?
No.
People were trying to suss out who in that situation would prevent the man in black from dying. And some people were like, well, a horse wouldn't actually run away. But then it's like, well, then what is it doing? And then people were like, well, the tree can break on command if
that's amazing.
if the man in black was going to die.
I hope that all the flora are hosts.
Yep.
Every bush just gets up and moves wherever it's needed to.
Yeah, Bush crawls underneath his feet to kind of lift them up a little bit.
And they just pile up like thousands of bushes enough to keep him alive.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's really funny.
I did get a bunch of other feedback, but I'm going to save that for next week. So, yeah.
Oh, man. No, see, old Bill shows up whenever you're in mortal danger.
Oh,
that's his role.
Beautiful.
Jetpack.
He's the mysterious stranger in
exactly. Yep. When you need him most in a pinch.
Beautiful.
He'll roll through.
Beautiful.
Tell you some story and then bail.
Yeah. All right. So let's get on with the episode recap. We open with Arnold constructing Dolores. Nice little scene here. We get a beautiful wide shot of the special effect of a mechanical body on Evan Rachel Wood's frame, essentially. What did you think about that?
It was cool. It was very graceful. It
Yeah.
was very fluid, and I really liked the way it moved. I guess I liked the way she moved.
Yeah.
I guess she gets credit, I suppose. But it was just animated in a way that felt very fluid and not robotic.
You get a glimpse of the elegance that the Man in Black talked about.
Yes.
In terms of all the million little pieces. Like that creation that lays on that table is like infinitely complex, but kind of insanely enticing, and you're very curious about it and wondering how it works, which is awesome. Whereas with like the human body or the organic type guys, you'd be like,
whatever.
I have one of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was really cool. We get to see Dolores kind of getting closer to the maze. She's shaving the Man in Black and sees and remembers Arnold heading into the church. And then we cut back to William finding an army to help find Dolores. And it's Lawrence's army, of course. Always good to see Clifton Collins Jr. Yeah, not too much to talk about there. But then Teddy is back in Sweetwater. He gets off the train and remembers seeing Dolores nodding in a sea of bodies at Sweetwater. And people have noted that there's a wolf in the shot walking by. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the wolf. I haven't been able to put anything together on it yet.
No, I did read something earlier that was pretty interesting, and I did not write down exactly what they were talking about, but they were saying something about there's some term called like a wolf's call.
Yeah, when you're playing in like an acoustic instrument, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I forgot exactly the definition of it when it occurs, but people pointed out that that may, again, tying the host into that theme of...
We do hear a wolf's call later that I noted it. It's when the...
I guess it happens another point in the series as well, earlier.
Maybe we'll have to go through and track that.
And we see the wolf in one of the early episodes, right? In like a similar sequence of somebody looking at a bunch of bodies and a wolf runs through
I think
it.
Dolores remembers that massacre in Sweetwater at some point and sees the wolf too. So we'll have to, some kind of symbolism there.
We have work ahead of us
to figure
still.
it out. Yeah. We're not done. Our work here is not done.
It is not done.
And one other thing that I noted while Teddy was kind of remembering this the sea of bodies, it's the second time or maybe one of several times that we hear the player piano playing the main theme, but it slows down and starts getting all like minor chordy.
It kind of distorts.
Yeah, and which is kind of like the showing of hosts remembering things and potentially leading towards like progressing in the maze and becoming more conscious, which I thought was cool. But Teddy eventually bucks his loop to go and help Dolores or find Dolores because he remembers her.
After wasting the big guy.
Yeah, which was great.
Always great. Love watching that dude get lit up.
Like that shot from him and this time just stood out to me for some reason. Just how immediate, like his reaction after getting out of that dream.
Just
or
boss
haze.
mode Teddy.
Yeah, he immediately.
He ain't playing.
Yeah.
He's out of Zoolander mode. He's gunning.
Yeah. So then Dolores leads the Man in Black to the maze and shows him that it's a little toy that's actually in her grave. It turns out that and then we see a little bit of Arnold explaining it to Dolores. The maze is a metaphor for consciousness. Instead of the pyramid, it's the maze, because a series of choices either bring you inward towards understanding or take you outward towards insanity. The center of the maze is when hosts actually hear their own voice instead of Arnold or Ford or anybody else talking.
Yep.
And Arnold wanted to prevent the opening of the park because the host could potentially be alive. And Dolores would be free if she found the center of the maze because Robert wouldn't want to open the park. So that was a nice little scene that kind of took a lot of language and revealed the true meaning to us, I think. I don't know that it necessarily answered anybody's questions directly, but for me, it kind of felt like a lot of the dialogue and questions that we were having gets explained there.
Yeah, and it kind of confirms a lot of what we were thinking too.
Yeah.
I think it was a long time ago that we decided the maze was probably not a physical construct or a place, but more of a symbol.
Yeah. We knew it for sure when we saw that the Man in Black talked about glimpsing the maze with
right, and then we talked about the
Maeve.
little girl continually telling him that it's not meant for him.
Yep.
That's the thing. It's going to come up more and more the further into this episode we get, but all of the answers were right there.
Yeah.
Everything has been apparent for a long time. And either we were looking too far past it for something more complex, or we didn't take note of it because we were paying attention to something else.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing.
It's fantastic.
The whole finale, every single thing that happened did not surprise me at all. Nothing was a shock. And I'm totally cool with that.
And it was all awesome.
Yeah, because it was well executed,
Yes.
and it was a brilliant idea, and we were just watching the formula complete and see the answer, the light at the end of the tunnel, but we all kind of knew most of what happened, which is really cool. And I don't think it's because we're necessarily so brilliant or anything like that. I mean, a little bit, but some things we were pretty good at. But I think it's just it's a testament to how good the show can be, that they can just lay it all out there for you for the most part, and you won't really question. Maybe you will question what you're seeing when you shouldn't. It's really fun. Like the show did a great job of making you look left when you should be looking right, and vice versa.
Which is why we're getting a lot of think pieces right now, because Reddit and Joanna Robinson and many of the people were able to put out there these ideas that eventually became true in this show. There's a lot of think pieces coming out being like, the internet's ruining TV watching and that kind of thing. But to me, knowing these things or trying to see if they're happening in the show did not ruin the show for me at all because of the quality of it.
And that is the greatest tightrope walk I think I've ever seen, because you would if we were doing a show to this degree on another mystery show, say Lost or something like that, we'd be sacrificing the enjoyment of the story and the fiction in order to put out our own show, our own product, so to speak. And I don't think that happened at all with this show.
Yeah.
Granted, we were spending more time researching and reading and throwing ideas around and looking further into it than simply tuning in. But because the show is based around a game and has so many parallels to video games, it feels like that's kind of what you're supposed to do, is talk about it and try to figure it out. Like you do have more information than all the characters, but at the same time, you're still kind of along for the ride with most of them.
Yeah.
And they, I'm sure, have their own theories too.
Totally.
Some of which come true and some of which don't.
And one of the things that I wanted to say is that I think if your TV show boils down to just being a big twist, it's probably not a good TV show,
Yeah, or if your show boils down to just like kill of the week or whatever sort of shock factor you can work into it, then it's definitely not a good show.
Yeah.
Like if you've created a show that makes people ask so many questions and want to know the answers, and then still be happy when the answer proves to be true, like it feels rewarding to be right about some of this stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is great. Another show, I might not feel so good about it. I'd be like, oh man, I totally blew it.
Yeah.
I ruined all that for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts here? So just a little bit, there's a lot to dive through here. And if you guys might have noticed, I'm doing this chronologically because I think this episode would be too difficult to break out into the different characters and storylines, because they're all pretty intertwined here at the end of the show, at the end of the season, rather.
around this time in the show, hey, my notes are going to line up for once, which is cool. I kind of wrote that I still was not necessarily wild about the Arnold revelation.
Yeah.
That Bernard and Arnold were they're not one and the same, but they're effectively the same person. Something about that is still, it's very, very cool, but that's one of the only things that feels a little underwhelming to me because we're just seeing more Jeffrey Wright, which is fine because he's great. Yeah. But it feels like Arnold was built up to be such this like very different presence, and they're pretty much the same when they're on screen. Like, his performance as Arnold is not terribly different than that of Bernard.
I think there's more difference there than we realize. And I think part of that would come with a second viewing and you paying attention to knowing where Arnold is and where Bernard is. Like, I think, and I kind of noticed in this episode that I feel like the Bernard character is a lot more calculating and I guess I would say he feels a bit colder than Arnold does.
I would say he's not as enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Maybe, but even then, Arnold's enthusiasm is pretty tempered. Like there's just not much of a variance between them.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's shades of difference here and there, but I mean, even when Ford is instructing Bernard on how to be Arnold, he's telling him how he would clean his glasses.
Yeah.
So clearly the intention was to basically recreate his best friend.
Yeah.
And while that's really cool thematically and good for the story, I think I would be more interested in the Arnold character were he either played differently or a different person altogether. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is tough because I don't want it to be different because it's so good as it is, and it makes Ford's story so profound.
Absolutely.
But even Arnold's death scene, I was just kind of like, you know what I mean? It didn't strike me like I felt like it should have. And maybe it's because we talked about that a long time ago, saying Dolores. We knew Dolores killed him.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It didn't hit me the way I wanted it to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
So that's only one thing, I guess.
So then the Man in Black obviously gets very dissatisfied with the fact that he still doesn't understand what the maze is, even though Dolores kind of figures it out, or we can put together what it is.
Oh, the Man in Black is totally the Greyhound. In this moment.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. He's that guy. He won 100% of the game.
Yep.
And doesn't know what to do now.
Yep. He feverishly chased after the last little bit.
Yeah, he just wants to know what Wyatt is. I mean, he's the only guy in this game I don't know about.
Yeah. So he starts beating Dolores, and he sees the park. There's a note where he talks about he sees the park as real, except for the fact that there's no stakes. He felt like the park was more real than the world outside. But instead it's just another game. And but Dolores explains that she won't be swayed to his dark side because she has one true love, who's William.
Mm-hmm.
So then we cut back to Lawrence and William finding a military camp that knows where Dolores is. Very quick cuts here on this episode. There's a beautiful little note there when Lawrence and William's like, will you help me with this? And Lawrence is like, well, since you asked me so nicely. And then Logan's like, what does Logan say? Do you remember?
He says something like, "Aw, blood brothers," or something like that.
Yeah. It's. I thought that was a funny moment just because Logan's like, of course he's going to help you because that's what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. But we see Sizemore realizing Ford is going to be booted out when he's talking with Charlotte Hale, and the entire board of directors arrives at the park. And Sizemore would seemingly get full control as long as he gets out of the park. It gets all the info out of the park and makes it all simpler. So I think that's important to realize that the board wants things to be simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't what they see Ford doing.
No.
So that motivation, I think, is important to understand.
And that's kind of what we were saying before as well, that they want to churn out the blockbuster hit.
Yep.
And they don't want to make the artful
They
endeavor.
want the market-tested Hector.
Yes.
Out there. Sexing the women's. Getting shot by the dudes.
Or sexing the dudes.
Or sexing the dude, whatever floats your boat. Yeah.
Sexing the people.
Yes.
The
Sexing all of the people. We get a great sequence of seeing. So some people were kind of theorizing what was the point of Maeve burning the tent last week. And it turns out that was enough to destroy their bodies because we see Maeve get rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
Because they needed to make sure she was rebuilt without the explosives in her spine.
Oh,
yeah,
that's what Sylvester was doing.
Yes, that's why he was putting that spine back together.
Got it.
We kind of follow it through, and it looks a lot like Tandy Newton. And I didn't really put all that together until the second time I watched the episode.
Nope,
I was like,
really
oh,
good.
That's what's going on right now. But that was a sweet little sequence there.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
We get to see Hale telling Ford that he's going to be out. We get some great Anthony Hopkins chewing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Which that video that Yoop sent has kind of ruined acting for me because I'm like looking for that kind of stuff on Tessa Thompson's face.
And it's not there.
And it's not there.
No.
Like Anthony
it hasn't ruined acting. It's just
it's kind
just
of
pointed out bad acting.
Well, exactly. It's ruined okay performances to me because now they're no longer okay with how great Anthony Hopkins is. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go a couple episodes back on the show notes on Westworld FM. There's a video that Yoop sent us about the acting of Anthony Hopkins in the series.
Yoop. Happy belated birthday. Well, happy birthday again, Yoop.
Yes, happy birthday.
We are November birthday pals. Only a couple days apart, I think.
Is he after you?
2 or 3 days
you?
apart, yeah.
That's awesome.
After.
Very cool. Happy birthday, Yoop.
The old man.
I bolded here. The piano player's name is Frank in Ford's office.
Good.
It's going to be important later. I know it's not. Probably not.
He was building another Frank in his.
That's the host that he's like
Frank to play the upright bass.
Yeah, I need a new Frank here.
Beans.
So then Armistice and Hector start killing humans here. Destin being a creep.
Super creep.
It's like a very gross creep. And there's a great thread about this on Reddit about people that are like, in what workplace are you going to go and yank it next to your coworker in a glass room? This is the least believable part of this finale where robots start murdering humans that created them.
Yeah, I guess. I mean...
this is the one thing that I wouldn't like. This bothers me here. Like, why would he do that? Why would he think that he wouldn't get caught, or why is that okay? I don't know.
I think
weird.
that the hierarchy of the show, these guys are the dudes working the graveyard shift, like unsupervised 80th sub block that no one goes down to.
Yeah.
They are the...
And I think in the security footage that we see later of the dude getting thrown through the glass, that corner is out of the view of the camera. But it's still kind of like there could be people walking through the hallway. I don't know. It was just really weird.
It was weird. It didn't strike me as...
It seemed like it was there to be gross. And maybe for no other reason. Other than to maybe get a good kill from Hector.
Pretty good kill.
It was solid great. Kill. Yeah, the saw through the chest it's like a chest burster, pretty much. But yeah, so they start killing people. The close-up shots of Armistice's mouth with the fingers going in them, ugh.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, that was very difficult to watch. And then Sylvester reveals to Maeve that her program, the person programmed her to be able to wake herself up, which is important.
Yes.
And then we see Teddy grab a horse to head to Escalante. And then finally...
Again, boss mode.
Yeah.
Just shoots a guy, takes his horse.
Oh, yeah. Hops off the train, shoots a guy, grabs a horse, continues. He's doing in like Assassin's Creed where you hold R1 and X and you're just like running towards things and it's all happening anyway, you know?
I've only played the first Assassin's Creed and I played like 3 things and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I was so stoked for that franchise. Like before that first game came out, oh my God, was I excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never played a single other one.
That's okay.
And I hear that 2 is pretty awesome.
2's okay.
And that character's story, those are all good entries.
Yeah. Yeah, but actually I think the only one that I've been able to complete was Black Flag, which is 4.
I have that one on 2 different consoles.
It's pretty... Anyway.
Haven't played it yet.
Go listen to Midwest Game Nerds podcast and hear us talk about video games sometimes. So this is the big reveal here. This is where the Man in Black reveals that he's William. there's a lot of exposition here. I'm not. I mostly want to try and go off of our interesting notes here in terms of what actually happened or what we really need to talk about, because we did see this coming, as you said. Did you like the reveal? Did you like the way that it unfolds?
Yeah,
because we get a lot of exposition from Ed Harris.
Yeah, and it was all very well done.
Yeah.
Ed Harris is fantastic. I really love listening to a character talk and watching stuff like this unfold. Again, it's very Nolan.
Yeah.
To do that. And it is, I guess it's technically voiceover, but knowing that there is a character speaking to another character and we're just watching the events, I thought that was all just really well done. I had a lot of fun watching that montage of William kind of scouring the land. And, so the Man in Black initially starts referring to the William in the third person, and I was like, oh, shit, it is Logan. And I got really excited because I was like, I wanted us to be really thrown off.
Yeah.
And then as it was progressing, I was kind of like, no, he's referring to...
He only refers to himself in the third person because Dolores calls... because he's
William
is
being a
going to
dick
save
to her.
me.
Yeah, he's just being an asshole.
Yeah.
He's just drawing it out.
Yep.
And letting her realize it instead of just telling her, I'm William, stupid.
Yeah.
I like that he... I like how amused he is by it. Like this has not crossed her mind in 30 years.
Yeah.
So his reaction is really good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's not bigger.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were commenting saying that he still loves her, or now that she is going to achieve what he always wanted her to, that he's going to fall in love with her again or something like that. And I was kind of like, I don't think so. I think that it's well beyond that.
The ship kind of sailed, I think, because he realized in that time, he talks about how he gets bored of her. He got bored of her at one point. And I think it's because he realizes that he could get to points where she kind of recognized or like realized him a little bit, but she would always forget again.
Yeah.
And clearly in this moment, she doesn't remember him.
It would have been cool to see a little bit more of William's return visits repeatedly and him getting older and like them being in love maybe for a minute, but then her not remembering him, kind of get this like Sammy Jenkins like Memento thing going again, where eventually she will always forget him, and that's a constant.
Yep.
That would have been neat. And I think watching Jimmy Simpson age progressively into Ed Harris would have been cool, but the hat hat shot was really cool as it was done. So
even him in the Man in Black get up with the vest and the shirt and the hat.
and in the last 2 or 3 episodes, his performance was definitely leaning towards
closer
Ed
and
Harris.
closer,
Just
absolutely.
the way he was carrying himself, the way he was. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
It was good. Great job on Jimmy Simpson for starting to emulate Ed Harris so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a very cool sequence. It's definitely something that I do want to watch again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that listening to him talk about how William continued looking for her and all that was sad.
Yeah.
And,
a few other things to talk about. Logan. What do you think happened with Logan? Like, that's one other thing that I can't quite put the pieces together on yet. We see the Man in Black, or William. We see, I can just call him William now, I suppose. We
Old
see
Bill.
William in the past.
Old William.
Yeah, old Will.
Billiam.
We see him put a feather in naked Logan's hands as he's tied up on a horse. And then he hits the horse to go send him off somewhere, essentially.
Yeah.
Do you have any like thoughts on... Like, to me, it may like the way that scene plays. It's like Logan is suggesting that he realizes that that William is going to somehow discredit Logan and take the company from him.
Uh-huh.
But my question is, like, how does that happen? Like, has William like actually gone and murdered every single host in the park, and then he pins it on Logan, or like what?
I think it's going to be a combination of a couple things. Probably a lot of the dismemberment that they leave in their wake, and I think it from people who are around them in Sweetwater, because they seem to have been in the park for a while. They've been here for like weeks, feels like.
Yeah.
They were in Sweetwater for a while. They would have crossed paths with other guests. I think that it was pretty well established that Logan was kind of a loose cannon, and William was much more reserved. And I think that if he sends him off naked on a horse, he's going to get found at some point, probably sun bleached to hell and a little wacko.
Yeah.
And I think William, if he has always had this reputation his entire life up until Westworld of being the put together,
clean.
Exactly. He's going to, and we know now how manipulative he is.
He can be, yeah.
He's going to just step back into his old role and say, yeah, Logan kind of lost his mind out there, but I do think, I think that the park is worth investing in, that kind of thing. Like, he kind of lays it all out there and says he's going to need somebody more stable. You've always been erratic and that sort of thing. I think that maybe
like, and
I kind of keep coming back to like whatever made William's wife kill herself.
So somebody kind of mentioned like it seems like something has to happen in the park that, like, if Logan is still alive, which I believe he was, I don't think William killed him or anything like that.
No,
Or
I think if William was going to kill him, he would have killed him and left him somewhere.
Yes.
Or, hidden him.
But it seemed like, what would stop William from like going to his sister and being like, you can't marry this psychopath,
You mean Logan? What was that?
Yeah, Logan, excuse me.
I think maybe a combination of, again, his reputation and maybe just fear. I mean, I think he saw what William was capable of at this point. And I think maybe they just kind of have an understanding of like...
That's interesting. Yeah. To me, I wish it was a little more explicit, maybe because I'm stupid or something. I don't know. Like,
no, I agree. We could have gotten a little bit. We could have seen like an old Logan at the party at the end. Like, he's still on the board, but he's like a minority holder. Like that, something like that would have been cool.
Somebody's saying he could pop up in a season 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which would be cool, and I'm down to see that. And maybe then they'll reveal a little bit more about what happened in that.
Yeah, I mean,
exchange of power.
There's a lot of territory
to mine. Yeah.
Between all the characters that we know already, even ones that might be dead. I mean, we could still see flashbacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, there's a rabbit hole there where too much, start to go down the way of Lost. But characters are compelling enough.
Yeah, we get a little bit. The one thing that I did write some direct quotation down here. Dolores says to William, she starts crying and says, "Time undoes even the mightiest of creatures. Just look at what it's done to you. One day you will perish. You will lie with the rest of your kind in the dirt, your dreams forgotten, your horrors effaced, your bones will turn to sand. And upon that sand a new God will walk, one that will never die, because this world doesn't belong to you or the people who came before. It belongs to someone who is yet to come."
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Very
awesome.
Good. Evan Rachel Wood turned it up to 11.
Absolutely.
That scene.
So then the Man in Black ends up stabbing her after she beats the hell out of him, which is great.
It was pretty cool.
And Teddy shows up, blasts the hell out of Ed Harris, which is great. And then she wants to go to where the mountains meet the sand, which they talked about previously.
Where the mountains meet the... Did she say where the mountains meet the sea? Did she say?
Yeah, excuse me. The mountains meet the sea.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I thought that might be right, and I just misheard it.
Nope. So then we get Maeve reviving Bernard in cold storage. Not too much crazy going on in that scene, except for what happens a little bit later, which we can just jump to now.
I really liked that scene because it really cemented full on like host Bernard for me.
Yeah,
like he has passed into a different strata of character, which I think is cool. Like we're kind of seeing the dividing line here. We're seeing the various factions, so to speak, like aligning themselves, and watching Bernard fully kind of, at this point, he has been reborn completely as a host. It feels like he no longer really has any ties to humanity.
That's true. Yeah, and it's with that ability to remember everything that he's gone through, it's given him a different...
And I wonder if Bernard is now technically conscious because of his sort of more insider knowledge that he has and how they work. And because he's also based on Arnold, he kind of has... just feels like he's a little bit predisposed to solving the maze a little earlier.
Yeah, it seems a little bit weird in that...
He's almost like a hybrid. Like he's kind of an in-between.
Like if he has I guess that's one thing that we need to understand is like, does he have the bicameral mind stuff in him is he able to receive those broadcasts, or can hosts that don't have, like, can the new hosts become conscious without that quote unquote system?
Right.
Like
right.
we don't really know that as of yet.
That's true.
But it seems like because Bernard thought he was real, like, I guess they all think they're real though. I don't know. It's a really tough discussion. Like,
well, Bernard thought he was human because he knew there was a difference. He knows there are hosts and humans.
Yeah.
And the other hosts think they're real only insofar as they know there is only one type of person.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know.
Bernard's kind of his own animal.
Yeah.
Where he could, in season 2 with, Planet of the Apes, Westworld.
Yeah.
He could
Dawn
almost
of the Planet of the Hosts.
Yeah, he could almost fall into either camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he has, I don't think he's going to have the same world. I think he and Dolores and Maeve are all going to have very different worldviews, and it's going to be kind of fun watching the three of them. Presumably, they're all going to link up and kind of be the leaders of this new kind of host nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I think so.
Potentially.
And they're all going to be very different.
Hopefully with old Lewis Hertham there with all of the host data in his head.
Just as this crazy
yeah, I'm hoping he's like
schizo host.
Yeah, totally schizophrenic thing, like with like just changing personlities the whole time.
Great.
That
he can do it. He
yeah,
did it in the first episode. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we do learn out of that scene later on with Maeve and Bernard is that Maeve has been programmed to break out. She's got things in there like mainland. Like, there's very clear call-outs in her code that are saying what she needs to do when she reaches the mainland and how she's supposed to escape and how she's supposed to gather people. That was pretty cool. That's a cool reveal anyway.
That was one of my holy shit moments.
Yeah.
Was the discovery. That was when I texted you.
Yep.
So we were watching the episode 3 minutes apart.
Yeah.
I started at 3 minutes before Alex, and, and then I texted you at one point, and you told me what timestamp you were at, and I checked. I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah.
And that was just around the corner from you, and I was texting him like, "Oh God," and like stuff like that, just vague.
Just, oh!
Yeah. I was doing that a lot. And then getting these replies back, it was really, really fun. And I said, just know that you're always 3 minutes away from something insane and awesome.
Yeah.
But that moment, once it was discovered that she was again a puppet.
Yep. A well-tempered clavier.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Alex is gonna love this.
Fantastic. It's a very, very cool moment.
I think I had a nope.
Bernard had a good line. He said, "How can you learn from your mistakes if you can't remember them?" Joanna Robinson liked that to the "How can you heal if you can't perceive
feel time?"
Yeah.
Yep.
So
totally
a beautiful memento mirror there.
The only note I have from that scene is, guys, old Bill is right there. Get him.
Yeah, and I suppose I can say our buddy Fred in his later email that I'm going to read next week, he says, "Where was old Bill?"
Right there.
They couldn't give me that one small piece of satisfaction in any of the flashbacks. Yeah, flashbacks too. Let's see, like, brand new old Bill.
Just squeaky clean old Bill.
Yeah.
Got wasted. Potential. What was going on?
I don't know.
Get him in there.
Main player Michael Wincott next season. Let's make that hashtag.
Please.
Get it out there, guys.
Old Bill's too cool. I had a note earlier, too, that I said Felix is fictional moron of the century because he's just so stupid.
Yeah.
Felix, why?
Felix is the toughest kind of buy-in for the show, I think, other than Destin. To me,
he's not written in such a way that I buy at this point scientific curiosity getting the better of him.
Although I will say I made a little bit of a connection today in that he is very similar to William. The way that we see William fall in love with Dolores and realize that there's something there and that he needs to help her.
Yeah.
Like I think it kind of defies logic in that sense. And that's kind of what we're meant to think, is that Felix just kind of sees Maeve and realizes what she is and what she could be and is like,
yeah, I
charmed
suppose.
by her
and maybe that's what Sylvester was saying by shouldn't they have caught this tendency in you earlier, this humanity?
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't the screening have hired the public masturbator over the robot humanitarian?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
those are probably the guys they want. They're like, well, this dude's literally going to just sit here and jerk off in front of this. Perfect. He's not going to help them with a rebellion. Yeah, I know what you're saying, and Maeve even has the moment in the elevator where she's kind of like,
you make a terrible human, and I mean that in the best way. Is what she says to him,
because her perception of humans is that they're all evil and like slavers.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't.
It's hard.
Something with Felix is not quite there. He's not a fully developed picture, and he needed a little bit more work for me to understand what exactly is motivating him, because he has no lines. He just stammers and looks at his tablet and then looks back, and I was like,
the moment where he realizes Bernard is dead, and then Maeve tells him that he's a host, and he like doubts what he is for a moment,
for a second, without saying.
That was a pretty good moment for
funny.
Felix, but.
Yeah, you could
largely
you could cut together most of his scenes for the last 4 episodes. There's no lines. It's just him being like,
looking incredulously.
Looking
things.
back and forth quickly from tablet to them, and just like in shock all the time.
Maybe you can't do that, but yes, I can, and then that's all.
Yeah, I would think he would intercede at some point and be like, "Listen, you need to stop killing people. Like, I understand and I want to help you, but this isn't the way." But instead, he just rolls over.
He's got a lack of humanity in him. In some ways, and in other ways not. Like, that's the weird part, is that he's got that Arnold, I care about the host more than I care about the humans, but there's no reason for him to feel that way.
Yeah,
we're not presented with one anyway, so I don't know. That's
all right.
Felix is difficult. We get a little chat between Ford and William about the maze. William thought the maze would allow hosts to kill if he got there, and he's not necessarily wrong, but he can't get there. They had to get there. But it was nice to see Ford call him William.
Yeah.
That was a nice little moment there. We get a few scenes of security realizing there's a discrepancy in cold storage. They're looking for Maeve, and they see the scene of Armistice throwing the dude through the glass, which is cool. And then the security room seals up. What are those people going to do? They're just stuck in there.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you get out?
That reminded me a lot of 73 Westworld.
Yeah.
This is where we got the most the movie.
Yeah. With
shit hitting the fan in the facility.
Absolutely. I guess that's the thing, is like, why would Ford want them sealed off? And some people were like, well, they're kind of innocent standby people, but it seems like he's unleashing the hosts on the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's come back to that.
Yeah. Teddy and Dolores find the sea, and they also find themselves at the end of Ford's new narrative.
That was great.
Another mind-blowing moment.
That was full-on, like, BioShock level, like, manipulation, getting them into that point. I loved that.
Yeah, like, listening, and it was funny watching the scene the second time around, because you realize, like, I realized that Teddy starts playing to the stage a certain way through, and the music at the same time, the music goes from being non-diegetic to being diegetic. And all of that was just a very cool moment to kind of pull the rug out from underneath you and be like, they've been doing everything that they're supposed to be doing.
That scene right there is why you cast James Marsden. Because my note is romance novel cover Teddy on the beach. That's why you cast James Marsden in that moment. Because, like, Frozen, him and Evan Rachel Wood right there with, like, backlit with the water, and, like, a big wave crashed right as, like, the timing of the wave was hilarious. Like, it was so funny. I started laughing out loud because just this huge, like, sweeping, it's amazing. It reminded me of, like, a terrible, like, dime store, like, romance novel cover. Seriously, that's exactly what it was like, and it made me laugh so hard. I was like,
beautiful.
People would eat that up. It was like it felt very like it was something you'd see like Cary Grant or like, Montgomery Clift in that kind of vibe.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was so funny. That wave made me laugh so hard.
That's awesome.
It was perfect.
The narrative's called Journey into Night. I don't know if there's a particularly interesting reading on that name, other than maybe it's the twilight of humankind.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took it as.
Yeah. Which is cool.
And even Sizemore says like it's kind of morbid. Like, it's kind of, or does he say maudlin? Something like that.
He says it's morbid, and then she's like, "You can do whatever you want when you are in control of everything, but go get Abernathy out of here." Essentially.
So Abernathy has not yet hit the train on out.
Yeah, seemingly at that point he was supposed to go recover him from cold
storage.
Oh,
because he went down there to find him. Yep. Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
that's right.
That was my understanding of
totally.
how things happened. But then Ford orders Dolores to the old field lab. Maeve and her crew start sprinting for the exit. Hector and Armistice get to discover automatic weapons, which is a fun scene.
Yeah, so I liked that we essentially saw they've been training for this kind of slaughter their entire loop.
Yeah,
we saw them dismantle.
They're you and Gojo playing Destiny, essentially.
Not playing anything.
Yeah, playing video games together.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been watching them dismantle Sweetwater repeatedly, and this was the exact same thing, just in the real world. And I thought that was really really cool.
The well-oiled machine.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. They stumble into Shogun or Samurai World.
Yeah, my note just says Alex World.
That's so awesome. I want to go so bad.
I know. As soon as I saw those guys, like those two feudal samurai, I was like, Alex World. Alex would not. I would totally go to Westworld. I love westerns, and I was like, Alex would totally go to Alex World. And maybe, just right away, I was like, he's gonna love this. He's gonna be upset that this show was not there the entire time.
No, I don't feel that way.
Alex loves Japan.
I do love Japan.
Loves Japanese culture and
I have
language.
been there 3 times.
Works for a Japanese firm.
I do.
Speaks a little Japanese.
A little bit. Ohio.
What about Ohio?
Good morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ohio?
Ohio gozaimasu.
How do you?
Good morning.
Like Ohio, the state of Ohio?
Ohio. Ohio. Yeah. Anyway, that's your Japanese lesson for today.
I like it. Now I know.
Yes. Samurai World, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what else is out there too.
Yeah, this is where I started to get. I guess I shouldn't say I started to get excited because I'm excited whenever I'm watching this show. But it was cool. A lot of people have been talking for a long time, especially people that have seen the film. Like, are there other parks? Yeah. Whether or not this is a full functioning park or like a test. Like, we're thinking about expanding. Is it a proposed phase?
Well, and even the paper that
it does say Park 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I have in my notes also. Park 1 with an exclamation point. And it could also be. It doesn't seem like a lot of. I don't know. I was going to say it seems like maybe not a lot of people know about it, but that doesn't make any sense.
I don't think so, because it kind of strikes like Felix saying it's complicated. I think...
yeah, that's a good point.
I think he knows. I think he's aware of how big Delos is and what's going on. Like, to me, it seems like there could be a lot of other parks that are functioning. But the kind of weird thing is like...
Well, Ford.
Why wouldn't Ford's hands be in those?
Right.
Maybe they are,
and maybe not though. Maybe other people manage those, and Westworld is his baby.
Yeah, and that could be the thing. Maybe Westworld is the one that gets all the updates first, and then it all rolls out elsewhere.
It's his personal. Yeah,
that's his playground. That's.
But I mean, Felix saying it's complicated is weird. Other than him just saying there are other parks, you know what I mean? Like, it's complicated was a very non-committal answer. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is there that they just didn't have the time.
Well, they don't care.
Nor did they want to talk about it there.
It doesn't matter right now. It was, if anything, it was an Easter egg.
Yep.
For now.
Yeah.
We didn't see really Roman World, although we kind of got a tease of that with the big orgy palace. Somebody
noted that Jonathan Nolan was asked, "Are we going to see Medieval World or Roman World?" And he said, "No, we're not going to see those because we didn't. We saw Samurai World.
Yeah,
it was glorious."
Wouldn't it be called Eastworld?
That's what some people were saying. I don't know.
I guess that there was an SW logo.
There is an SW logo, so it's got to be Shogun World or Samurai World. It could be either one of those. It could be something. Sushi World is something that Reddit came up with that I thought was really funny. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I think some of that is like the idea of referring to Asia as the East is kind of antiquated in a way.
It's true.
But I don't know.
Referring to the Wild West as the West, though, is even still a little.
Yeah.
It is technically the West.
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I guess the Western is the name.
Yeah,
of
like a Western
genre
is, and it was made by a lot of,
very true.
Other people. Spaghetti Westerns. That's
Well, the Western, the West. The idea of the West is always that idea of, the new frontier.
Yeah.
Finding a go west.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Totally.
So
the band Go West with. I don't know.
There's a band
anyway,
called Go West.
Yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere. I was trying to make
somebody
it,
write in with a joke. Remind us of the joke.
Yeah. The other note that I had in here is that the guards of Westworld seem to be stormtroopers because they cannot hit a damn thing.
It's because Stubbs wasn't there.
Most of them don't get an opportunity to hit anything, but there is a point where they kind of get the jump on some people and they don't do any damage at all.
Yeah. 2 or 3 of them light up Armistice, and it doesn't seem to do anything.
Yeah, she doesn't get hit
because aggression is up to 10 and pain.
There's 2 guys that are trying to sneak up on her. I'm like, she's like 4 feet away, and you can't hit that.
You would think they would have some pretty serious armament ready in the event that a host ever, unless everybody is that naive where they're like, it will literally never happen. Their spines will blow
But
up.
I feel like with SWAT teams like that, like if you have those guys prepared, why are they in anything that can actually be affected by guns?
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess that's one other thing that I wanted to say. The way the show handles guns.
It is a little
Why can these guns hurt humans? Why couldn't they just hurt hosts is one of those things. Guns are never reloaded ever in the show, essentially.
Future.
Yeah, which is fine. If that's the case, then that's fine. But I don't know. They're
being 3D printed on the fly.
Every gun has a 3D printer in each chamber.
Sure,
that's cool. All right,
each chamber is a 3D printer.
3D printer world.
Oh man. We're gonna have so much fun just coming up with other worlds now. Alex World, 3D printer.
Beautiful.
World. Oh man.
Yeah, Armistice's arm gets caught in a door, so she becomes Armistice.
Wiener Dog World.
Cease of arms. That'd be. Oh god.
That's also
Alex
World. The pest is looping 24/7. There's wiener dogs roaming in the streets, and sushi
and samurai. Yeah, and Maeve gets to the elevator. Hector's not coming with her. He holds off the guards. That's cool.
That was we got into really like tropey action movie territory here, but it was fun.
Yeah,
it was that kind of like go and like die well. It was like super dramatic and really come on. It was stupid, but
it was great.
Yeah, it was fun. It wasn't as much. It wasn't as good as the Yul Brynner Rampage from the film, which is interesting. I think that's literally the only thing that the film might do better than the show.
Yeah,
is that shit is horrifying. This was like...
I think we have a lot of room for that to happen next season.
Yeah, that's true. That is true, especially with whatever people are going to be surviving in there if they can't leave.
If there's humans around still, then they're being hunted by hosts.
And we'll get into that.
Yeah. But, yeah. So then we get to see the scene where Ford essentially reveals everything to Dolores. The maze is a test of empathy, and essentially Ford would not halt opening the park, so Arnold put the Wyatt narrative into Dolores, had her kill everyone, and then kill himself. He commanded her to do it using the phrase, "These violent delights have violent ends," which is interesting and cool.
You think that was the command?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Because that's the phrase that awakens Maeve even earlier in the series. It's kind of like so I don't know necessarily if that's the command or like, I don't know exactly how that would have worked, but it seemed like it does something to them. I think it's one of the phrases that Arnold programmed into them. So like turn the other cheek makes them reveal their mechanical self, that kind of thing.
The track that he plays, is that Reverie?
That is Reverie by Debussy.
Okay.
So
thought so.
Yeah, because Arnold mentions that was Charlie's favorite song. But Arnold made her pull the trigger, which means that she did not choose to do it, and she is not fully conscious.
No, because I don't think she would have, even if she had the choice.
Yeah.
I think Arnold she viewed as a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
We said this a long time ago, though. We said that Arnold had himself killed.
Yeah.
To prove that the park could not be open, that the stakes were too high.
Yep.
Basically, isn't that kind of exactly what he says? That like,
yeah,
I have to show them that.
Essentially, Arnold wanted to. He realized that he needed to kill himself because the host could just be remade.
Mm-hmm.
But losing him could do enough damage to prevent the park from being successful, at least.
Right, which is kind of messed up because he's not at that point. So say that his plan worked and they scuttled the whole park. He's kind of just killing the hosts.
But I think he saw that as a thing of mercy, because he realizes that if this park went on to exist in the way that the money people wanted it to,
sure,
these hosts would just be tortured. Like, they would be raped and killed and everything all of the time. They would never make it out. So, that's ultimately what Ford realizes and comes around to. And
yeah, I wonder how long ago that happened with Ford when he decided that Arnold's. I think probably maybe around the time he created Bernard.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah,
because it seems like that would be the moment where he accepts that Bernard or that Arnold was correct and that he needs to rectify the situation. You know,
I love his line about Oppenheimer.
Yes, he says, wasn't it Oppenheimer who said, any man whose mistakes take 10 years to correct was quite a man. Mine has taken 35.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
That's what a way to paint the picture.
Mm-hmm.
That line alone tells you so much about that character.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
So Ford gives Dolores the gun that she used to kill Arnold, in the sense that Bernard planted it out, and that's why we see her dig it out of the ground after hearing a message from the Bicameral Mind system earlier in the series.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I loved, and I didn't really know any of this about that Michelangelo painting, God creating Adam, the idea of the brain in God's cloak.
He said it took 500 years for someone to figure that out.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's really beautiful. The idea that the divine comes from within and not a higher power is very, very interesting.
That might be the singular best piece of writing on the show.
Yeah.
Finding a way to tie that painting in, and that essentially that's Ford's whole MO at this point is showing the hosts, and really only two of them, just Dolores and Bernard are the privileged few who get to talk with God, so to speak.
Yep. And
him tell them that there is the divine will come from within you. You guys are going to be essentially your own gods.
Also, and I think one thing that I did notice about we talked about who's the Judas steer, and we were saying that it was Dolores. I think in some ways there's a conversation here about how Bernard or Arnold realized that suffering was the key, in the sense that maybe he was the Judas steer that allowed all of the hosts to become conscious in a way. Essentially, it's kind of some meaning that I put to it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was true or intended that way, but
yeah, I think that the Judas steer, for now it feels like Dolores, but I think it's going to be something that it's almost going to be a role that one of them is going to have to grow into in season 2.
Yeah. Anything else about that reveal?
No, I think one of my favorite things about Ford is his penchant for nostalgia.
Yeah.
How he doesn't let things go.
Because that's you.
He holds, Nick World would just be
it's just nostalgia.
Things
all
forgotten.
Over the place.
Yeah. With lots of neon lights, and it would be raining a lot. The Blade Runner score would just be pumping through speakers.
You just made me think of Tron World, and now I'm like, okay.
Alex World would have some of that too. There would be elements of Tron.
Ours would be right next to each other.
They'd be adjacent.
Where they'd connect. Yeah.
Mine wouldn't be Tron though. It's a very different kind of futuristic aesthetic.
Yeah,
it would definitely have lots of the like Blade Runner-y street. Where there's just like a bar where you pull up a stool and have some awesome food right on the street.
It's raining all the time.
I love street food. That's totally, definitely. But man, I totally got off track. I forgot what I was going to say.
You like Ford because he's so nostalgic.
Yeah, and him hanging onto that gun is just terrific.
Yeah,
like and clearly his office is decorated with lots of little stuff like that. I just love that about his character, how he's that kind of guy.
Yeah,
like keeping the childhood home and preserving it. that sort of thing, preserving that memory.
Absolutely. It's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing what people hold on to, and the fact that he has that office where you could sit there and stare at all the little bits and pieces of it for hours and wonder why he has it there or what it means to him.
Yeah.
There's this head on his desk that looks like C-3PO's head that I'm kind of like, what is that? It's like, was that an old prototype? What is it? But yeah, no. Ford is endlessly fascinating.
Yeah, he's great.
Maeve learns where her daughter is. Park 1, Sector 15, Zone 3.
Did you see the dick butt gif that somebody made?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
I
good.
was expecting it as soon as Felix had a piece of paper in his hands.
You almost expected it to be in the show.
Especially knowing Jonathan Nolan is apparently a Reddit troll.
Oh, that's really good.
So she decides to still break out of the park at that point. She goes and sit down on the train. She's got a great line about how she was never my daughter any more than I was whoever they made me.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
I think she's still following her programming at this point as well.
Yes. Ford says goodbye to Bernard in the church. Bernard still is under the impression that even after all of that revelation to Dolores, Bernard still thinks that Arnold is the one trying to set them free somehow 30 years later, even though he's dead. But Ford kind of shows his hand and is like, I know how to get you out of here. Arnold did not, but I do.
I've figured it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so at this point, I guess this is a good point to interject with one of my questions from my questions list. So we can assume now it's Ford's been logging in under all of Arnold's login
credentials. I think so.
To kind of hide himself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the impression that I get, especially after seeing. I think the thing that ties it all together is Maeve's programming to break out and all of that stuff.
Yes, definitely.
Which seems to be a distraction for the security team, essentially, to completely make sure that they're not present for the massacre in the park.
Yeah, and when Elsie discovers that someone has been using Arnold's, that she's referring to the data that's been.
When she's in that theater, she's looking at the bicameral mind relay.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
and it says Arnold's been
doing it, and Arnold's been allowing hosts to lie and all that kind of thing. That's what she discovers there. So we can talk more about Elsie next week, I think, probably, just to keep this episode a little bit cleaner. But one of the ties that needs to still be tied up. Ford also saying goodbye to Bernard. Ford realizes that suffering was the key to awakening, essentially. Realizing that the world is not what you want it to be as part of consciousness, which I thought was that's an interesting concept. And Ford explains that he knows how to do it, and that keeping them there and causing them to suffer was what was going to allow them to break out and be free.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was pretty cool. Like he says they needed time to understand their enemy, become stronger than them, and have time to suffer.
The enemy being humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ford's basically totally okay with the fact that all these decades of prolonged suffering built up in a mind over time is definitely going to make them all want to eradicate humanity.
Yeah.
And he's totally cool with that.
Yeah.
And it's awesome because, again, he has repeatedly said this throughout the series, that humanity is not some gift. Humanity is not a gift. It's not, humans think that they're this great thing and they're not. And that he repeatedly kind of rails on humans.
Well, and even says in the pilot, he's like, humans have gotten to the end of the line. We've figured out how to eradicate disease, all that kind of stuff. Essentially, all there is left is to come back from the dead, is what he says, which is maybe built into Westworld, Get that transcendence singularity going on. Put yourself into the mind of a host like Arnold, essentially, A
lot of theories running hard and fast that Ford's doing that.
Yeah.
Ford will be back.
Yeah, so that's one thing here. We get to see there's a little bit of a lingering handshake between Arnold and Ford that people are saying, oh, that means that Ford is an old host because he said that one time that you could tell by a handshake that they're an old host.
Well, or that they were, yeah.
I don't
know. I think
ascribe to that.
I don't think so either.
Ford to be dead.
I I don't know how I feel yet. I don't know if I want him to be dead yet because he's probably my favorite character, but the ending is it's Shakespeare.
The way that it all comes together is so great that I feel like if we get to season 2, episode 1, and Ford shows up again at the end of the episode, like, it just would feel really cheap to me.
What's really funny is traditionally I would absolutely agree with that. I think that would come as no surprise that I'd be angry.
Yeah.
Flat out angry about that.
However,
but Ford likes to watch his stories play out, I think. Yeah. And I don't know if he would want to miss this one. You know what I mean? Like either he I mean, there's a lot of stuff to take into consideration regarding this decision to have Dolores to give Dolores the choice to kill him.
Yeah.
Which he seemed confident that she would make the choice. He's an old man, obviously. He's lived a life of horrors, pretty much. He seems to have acknowledged that he made a mistake 35 years ago, and he wants to fix it. He seems comfortable with dying, obviously. So I don't want to rob the character of that dignity by seeing them return.
Yeah.
Plus, let's not even discredit the poetic symmetry of Dolores executing her other creator, basically, and with the same gun in the same place.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that significance is not lost on Dolores, because that's insane.
I mean, I'm not out of the realm of seeing Ford in flashbacks, as you kind of mentioned earlier, that we could still see Ford pop up in future seasons.
Plus, there's just the nature of Anthony Hopkins, which is, I think, to generally not linger with a project.
Yes.
So I think that's also a big tipping point of what we're looking at.
Yeah. I think you should. I read a little bit of a script where they were talking about something that I talked about with Kate Renee Gleason, how she received a script that had anything irrelevant to her blacked out. They did that to Anthony Hopkins too.
That's great.
Like everything that didn't pertain to him was blacked out. And because of that video that we watched from Yoop, and he likes to know all of the dialogue backwards and forward, he was like, I need to know these things, and they didn't give it to him.
So he was probably a little frustrated.
Yeah, a little bit. But
that's great. I won't be angry if Ford returns, but it will have to be done very well.
And that's
it will have to be motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's kind of the things, like this show, I feel like we could say that about a lot of the things that came true of this show, of like, and I even said earlier, I was like, I don't know that any of this is satisfying because of the work that they're doing to make it all unclear to me. It felt like they were cheating a bit. Do you remember that conversation that we had?
Think so.
I said it was probably around episode 4 or 5 or 6. And I feel like I've been completely disproven wrong. Like, I don't feel cheated about it at all. I don't think they were hiding anything anymore.
Oh yeah, yep.
It's like that. and so I feel like if any show could pull off Ford coming back, it's probably this one.
Making you believe in something you didn't think you would accept.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. And so I'm just gonna keep an open mind just about everything. I didn't expect it, truthfully. I expected him to die like on episode 2, and then I got so used to having him around. Yeah, and I was like, oh, he's great. The show without him is strange, but it is clearly going in a direction that doesn't need him.
It's going in a very different direction from this season. So it's yeah.
Anyway,
so then Dolores finally finds the center of the maze in a little conversation with Arnold and herself, essentially. And the center of the maze is having your own voice as your consciousness.
And that's the whole point of the bicameral mind. Again, like they say that so early on that they wanted them to hear a voice inside that would help them make decisions. Like
So Ford explains earlier on that the bicameral mind system was to bootstrap consciousness and to make them eventually hear their own thoughts, as like hear thoughts that they were broadcasting to them as their own voice in their head. And so it seems like Ford figured out how to finally make that happen.
Yeah,
essentially, which is awesome.
It's
like it was all there.
It was all there.
The puzzle pieces just wasn't. It's like you said, we didn't have the cover to the puzzle box. We couldn't see the whole thing.
Right.
We couldn't see how to put it together yet. So yeah,
it was amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have in my notes from that point when she's like, talking about who is it, whose voice has she been hearing, that sort of thing. And my only note is your own voice,
Yep. Yeah. And that was cool. And I would like to go back and kind of look through that and see when we hear that bicameral mind voice, who is it at certain times? Because even in that scene, you hear it.
It's probably a mix of Jeffrey Wright's voice, Anthony Hopkins' voice,
and
Evan
Dolores'
Rachel Wood's
voice.
Yeah, it's probably a mix down of everybody.
I think so, because in this scene, that very question that Arnold poses to her starts in his voice, adds Ford's voice, and then changes to her voice as she realizes that. So you know that they'd been doing that throughout the whole series. It's there. So awesome. And then the final scene of the show, Ford giving his final speech. I did want to note there is a shot there that somebody noted on the Reddit of Ed Harris drinking the whiskey. It's very similar to Yul Brynner drinking whiskey in 1973 Westworld.
Oh, that's funny.
It's a nice little nod.
Yeah.
The player piano is playing Radiohead. What's the name of the song? Is it end title?
Exit music for a film.
Okay, yeah. Exit music for a film. Which has lyrics that are very apropos of the show and what's going on at this point in time. So I guess things to talk about real quick. Maeve sees a child on the train, decides to go after her child and not follow her programming anymore. So that is the choice that she makes that makes us realize that she is conscious. She has a consciousness. But she ends up getting stuck in the lobby because the whole place shuts down essentially. So what did you think about Maeve? Kind of where we end up with Maeve there.
I think it's going to be interesting watching her try to fight her way back into the park because she's kind of she's probably going to think, well, shit, if I just stayed on that train, I'd be out of here.
Yeah.
Now I'm stuck in this park.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think it's a good place for her to end up. I'm kind of interested in Maeve again. I think she got pretty one note in the last few episodes, just like, I'm getting out. I'm getting out. I was kind of like, hey, we get it. You're getting out. That's fine. And
yeah, to see that all come to a head, I'm kind of, and part of me was wondering, when I didn't accept that Ford was probably going to die, I was wondering if he was going to leave the park and Maeve was going to be outside and they were going to work on blowing the doors open from the outside as well. But
that'd have been interesting.
Yeah, clearly that didn't happen.
No.
But so on from Maeve, Sizemore opens up cold storage and it's completely empty.
Creepy.
Totally awesome. It made me think of all the times that we went down there and those very creepy shots of everybody standing there, and then to see the place empty is a horrifying thought.
Super.
So that's awesome.
Zombieland.
Ford essentially gives a speech about how humans are unable to change, but he realized that somebody was paying attention and changing, and that would be the hosts, essentially. I have to go through and look at, just listen to his words and not pay attention to anything going on screen, because I know there's a lot there. So hopefully I can do that before next week's episode. And then the man in black essentially is smoking. The man in black, William, is smoking out back. He hears some twigs cracking. We hear a wolf cry. And the cold storage hosts come out of the greens.
Packing heat.
Yeah. And they shoot at him, and he is delighted that he gets shot in the arm.
Absolutely.
He is just the happiest we've seen him in the whole series.
It's really funny.
It's great.
Somebody, of course, immediately stole the freeze frame of that and posted it on Reddit. It's really amusing.
It's wonderful. It's a beautiful little moment from Ed Harris. Dolores shows up and tells Teddy that the world doesn't belong to the humans, it belongs to us. Ford announces his retirement, and he has the nice line about Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin never died. They became their music, essentially, which is lending credence to people who are like, Ford's still alive. He's going to make himself a host. I don't know. I think that was more about how Arnold lived on in his work.
Yeah,
Ford will do the same.
Beethoven did not upload himself into music.
No, he didn't. Literally. But would he have if he could have?
I don't know.
And then Dolores kills Ford, and all the cold storage hosts start shooting. This massacre, I mean, what do you think happens? I feel like most of the people got to die.
I think, well, so what do we see? We see Dolores. Dolores is the only one actively shooting.
Dolores is the only one actively shooting in the crowd.
But there is a tree line of hosts.
Tree line of hosts that are shooting at Ed Harris.
Yes.
Because he does get shot in the arm. But
I think that the board, I definitely don't think they're all dead. Basically, do we want to talk about season 2? What we think?
I mean, we can a little bit if you have some ideas. We can also talk about that next week if more comes to us as well.
Yeah, I guess just while we're here, I think it feels like. So are we to believe now that Westworld is on an island? It seems like it's on Earth and it's in some sort of neutral island because they're talking about mainland. There's that mainland reference.
Yeah. That's the one thing is like the mainland makes it seem like they are somewhere not.
Which would make sense for like a business venture to be somewhere away where you can't be restricted by any sort of
law.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere independent.
Yeah, if it's on sea, then it's like international. Yeah, international waters kind of thing.
It seems like it's on Earth, probably.
Yeah,
it's probably not on the moon.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Or Mars. It's probably on Earth. So that said, it feels like season 2 is going to be the park is locked down. Probably nobody can get in or get out. At least right off the bat, I'm sure that efforts will be made to get people into the park.
Yeah.
It feels like it's going to be setting up hosts either trying to come into their own and Dolores probably trying to lead them into a new era to become the dominant species on the planet.
Yeah.
They can probably start creating more of themselves if they wish. It feels like the humans that are still there are going to be trying to band together to stay alive.
Yeah.
And there may be a faction of hosts that are sympathetic to humans. I would imagine that seems pretty logical to me. Again, we're getting into real heavy Fallout 4 territory here. Yeah. It feels a lot like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the hosts will probably be friendly, and some of them won't.
Yeah, they'll be like, well, they're just like us. Why would we?
And some will probably have like a religious fanaticism to them. Like, they created us, they made us. We need to not. Who knows what else they can do to help us? Further ourselves. We shouldn't kill them. It's going to be watching the politics of the hosts unfold is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
It does feel. I did get some real heavy Planet of the Apes vibes at the end. Feels like a lot of humans are going to wind up in cages.
Yep.
Getting raped and murdered. So that's interesting. I think the man
Rebus was very happy with the situation.
Yeah, I saw another. Did you see the topic on Reddit? Somebody said, when you know you're about to get up to some Trevor shit. And it was just like that look on his face. Yeah.
That's pretty good. I didn't see that one.
That was funny. I think the Man in Black is alive. Everybody seems to think he's Swiss cheese and he's dead laying there. I think this is what he wanted. To have him die now would suck.
Yeah.
That's like our friend getting to Mario star number 123 and then his cartridge failing on him and him not getting that last star. Are there 124 or 125?
120, I think 120.
You said. Okay. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That would rob the Man in Black of so much potential. Plus, he's been spending the last 30 years getting to know. He knows that park better than the hosts.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
Mm-hmm. Although, just to note here, he may not have. Somebody said he doesn't have any arms anymore because he had his arm broken by Dolores, and then he had the other one shot.
I don't know if he had his. Yeah, he may have had his arm broken. It looked like his shoulder was dislocated because he's walking around and he's holding shit later.
But he's holding his arm very still. It does look to me like basically he's missing a sling, but it seems to me like his arm got broken because Dolores even does the. I don't know.
It looked like an upward, like a dislocate. It looked to me like a dislocation.
Maybe.
I'm no expert.
It's probably still sore. The man's like 63
for sure. And then he got clipped in the other arm. Yep. Hell no. He's going to bandage that shit up. As soon as the camera cuts.
He spits the whiskey into the arm and then runs off.
He's smiling and the camera cuts. What we don't see is that he dodges the next shot.
Yep.
Just shoulder rolls behind something and is just in. He's in it.
Pulls 3 guns out from under his suit.
He's so in. No, he's not. He's going to savor it. He's going to draw it. He's not fighting back right away. He's fleeing into the woods. He's setting up, he's cauterizing that shit, and then he's like, oh,
Calculating.
it's on. Yeah, oh yeah. He's
Beautiful.
gonna love it. He's the Black Panther up there in the trees now. The Man in Black is gonna become this symbol of fear among hosts again. No, it's great.
He's Batman.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, Ed Harris is the Dark Knight Returns.
Beautiful.
No, I think the Man in Black to have the Man in Black be dead would be dumb. I think it would be a crucial misstep.
Yeah.
In exploring some more of what he can do, and also, I don't want to say he needs to be rewarded per se because he's kind of a bad guy.
I think it's kind of I don't know that he's going to get rewarded. I think that he might get.
Well, I think
he might get his comeuppance essentially.
Yeah, him being able to live in this world is his reward. This is all he wants.
Yeah.
So.
But it could be a be careful what you wish for situation, of course.
Yeah, and I guess it's tough because it's hard to call the Man in Black a bad man because, well, maybe it's easy to call him that, but I don't think it's necessarily accurate because to him, the hosts are just puppets.
Well, it's what we said all along about Logan. Logan's the guy playing Grand Theft Auto, wreaking havoc, and that's what William is doing.
Exactly, and William once believed in the hosts gaining like consciousness, and then he fell out of that belief, and now he's been reawoken to it.
Yeah.
So we may have a very different William on our hands in season 2, someone who understands the hosts as a little bit more of peers and less just objects. So I don't know, but I think that to get rid of the Man in Black would be a mistake.
Yeah.
And to not just show it definitively at the finale would, I guess we could be led to believe. But I think, shit, it's nighttime. He can run. The hosts don't. I don't think they have like predator vision. I don't really know. I don't know enough about the hosts, how the hosts work. But I would wager that based on their kind of peaks and valleys of programming, they're not all crack shots with guns. Like
I think a lot of them have a lot to learn.
Exactly. Yeah, that one was probably aiming for his heart and just clipped his arm.
And who's to say? I mean, a lot of them still could be afflicted by their programming. They could still be
a lot of
completely...
them might. And Dolores and company might find that they're struggling with this in season 2. That a lot of them are not going to solve the maze. They're going to work outwards and they're going to go insane.
Yep.
And they're going to need to be put down.
Yep.
Or rolled back and then try again with Bernard's help, probably.
Yeah.
I think a Bernard-Dolores partnership is going to be really interesting. I think it was really interesting how Teddy was kind of horrified at what was going on.
Yes.
This is not the Dolores that Teddy knows.
Which is interesting because that's how he is when she kills Arnold as well. Like he's very much
Teddy
unsure of it. Which
you
is
the real MVP.
Oh yeah.
No, it's true, and he might dissent.
Yeah. Which
is cool. I think watching the show become pretty much hosts is going to be just really tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an entirely different... Like, that's what people have been saying. I think Evan Rachel Wood was kind of quoted as saying that season 1 is a great setup for what the real show is going to be. And the idea that this is kind of a very different... Like, it's in Jason, without spoiling anything for Preacher, it's within Jason's comparison between the Preacher season 1 and this season, and that...
I don't think so.
I think it's going to be a very different show. I
agree with that. I don't think you can dismiss season 1 as a primer.
No, I don't think. I think dismissal's the wrong word for it. But I think taking it as a lot of groundwork to then eventually get you to what you want to talk about. I think that's fair. You know, like season 1's got to introduce the world and set it up and have you all buy into it and. It's made us sympathetic to hosts in a lot of ways that I think would be a challenge in any other TV show.
I agree with that assessment of Preacher. I think season 1 of Preacher is definitely a setup to the main story. I don't think that's the case with this show. This season was not just a setup. A complete story was told in this whole season, and it is establishing the world. But I feel that we got. The show could end here, and I wouldn't be upset.
I totally
agree
with
Preacher,
that.
if it got canceled of season 1, I'd be upset because it clearly ends on this note of here we go. This whole season was our inciting incident. Let's hit the road with where we want to go from here. And this show, I think that an entire show was already told.
That's fair. But I wouldn't necessarily say that the implication that this is going to set us up for something different means that it wasn't a story worth telling, you know? I think this very...
Yeah, I just don't feel, I don't like that phrase that this is setting us up for anything. I don't think this is a setup. I think this is part of the story. It's the first part of a story, but it doesn't feel like setup. Just feels like a cheap word for it.
Okay, that's fair.
And I think the show is just going into, this is the direction that the show is going in, but it doesn't feel like it's like...
Well, and Jonathan Nolan kind of explains it. He's like, if season 1 is all about control, we want season 2 to be about chaos.
Right.
Is the phrasing that he used.
Yeah, it's like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. Like, Batman Begins is not set up for The Dark Knight. It's a complete story, and The Dark Knight just is it's an evolution, a progression of where Batman Begins was going.
That's fair. That's very fair.
I think season 2 is going to be... I don't know if I'm going to like it better right off the bat, because season 1 was... I love all the introduction to the world. Yeah. And season 2 is going to be... It's going to be like Planet of the Apes. It feels like it really... like this was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and that's Dawn, or whichever... Is it the other way around?
Rise was the first.
Okay.
Dawn was the second.
Still, after all these years. Confused.
Can't wait for the beginning of the Planet of the Apes.
It can't be as cut and dry as Pain and Gain, but that's fine. It doesn't need to... We have Pain and Gain.
Yes.
That appetite has been fulfilled.
Any other thoughts on that last scene there?
I know I have more. I really want to watch it again. I actually wanted to watch the last 10 or so minutes one more time, because a lot of the best Ford dialogue we've had was in those last few scenes.
Yep.
And whenever characters in movies know they're going to die, that moment always fascinates me. Like, I love watching characters deal with their imminent and near immediate death. That, for some reason, is something that always fascinates me. When characters make last stands and they know they're going to die, like, I still sometimes get shaky during the third act of Saving Private Ryan, when they're all taking cover in the town.
I've never seen Saving Private
You've never
Ryan.
seen... Oh, my... What the shit? We have another idea for a podcast that's going to have to happen now. So maybe in between this and Preacher, we can churn out a few episodes.
Yep.
Okay. Oh my God. Well, basically, at the end of towards the end of Saving Private Ryan, there's like a big last stand, sort of, and it is so anxiety inducing for me, because you have such a big cast of characters, and they all are like, we are gonna die. Like it is certain death, and that moment in movies always fascinates me, especially when characters react to it with when they meet it with like courage, sort of, and they charge into it.
You're making me think of Fury, anyway.
Totally.
Yeah,
exactly. And even if they're proven wrong and they live, it's that moment. So like, they're a character, and it's kind of like, like in Sunshine, there's moments throughout the movie where characters are faced with death, and it doesn't quite hit me the same way, because either they're scared, which is understandable. Obviously, that's the normal reaction. Yeah. But when characters choose to look it in the eye, is always really, really
make
fascinating.
The best of their moments.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of like Chief Brody and Jaws. The kind of that's a more cut and dry action movie. So he's going to make it out, but you're still on the edge of your seat. But Ford knowing that he has spent years setting this in motion, and he knows, he's like, I have a window of 2 minutes to say what I want to say and just go out with a bang. And he does it so well. Yeah. It's so eloquent and perfect, and like,
it speaks to his meticulous nature.
Yeah, and it's just very relaxed and poised, and it's just got this air to it that I'm having a hard time describing, apparently.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
I just think that was tremendous to me. Going back and watching that scene, I'm just going to be repeatedly in awe of how that was written and performed, because that's phenomenal.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
I was like, shit, he knows. She's going to walk up behind him and just blow his brains out. And this is what he's choosing to do.
Yep.
Just leave the world with, what a showman. I really liked, the way they show him getting killed was kind of funny to me, because he gets shot in the back of the head, and the angle is from behind him.
Yep.
And he gets shot through the martini glass. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I thought of was like the Memorex glass shattering. On like the burnable CDs, like CD-Rs and stuff. There's that, I think it's Memorex is the brand, where the glass shattering is that's like their logo.
Okay.
And it's them. I think I could be cross-pollinating two brands, but I don't think so. I think it's Memorex who has the glass shattering, and their logo is like, is it live or is it Memorex? Like, you know, is this a live recording or was this burned? Because the quality is supposed to be that good, and the glass shattering is kind of like that idea that the sound is so precise that it could shatter glass. Yeah. And I think that was funny because watching his glass shatter, I was like, it's almost like the hosts, is it live or is it Memorex? Like, it just kind of made me, for some reason, in the middle of the episode when that happened, this is the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny.
Well, that's pretty cool too, especially in terms of like the idea that the right resonant frequency would destroy a glass anyway. The idea that everything is in harmony and working perfectly and going exactly as it's planned, and then the glass shatters. Like, that's...
Yep, okay, so yeah, that was it. Is it live or is it Memorex? And then the glass, it was like just a big wine glass shattering.
Interesting.
Was kind of
I've never seen that. So that's cool, though. That's awesome.
You're not that much younger than me where you would have not really burned a shitload of CDs.
No, I mean, I did, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, these are really
maybe I wasn't a Memorex.
These are really old ads.
Yeah, that's
too.
like that's a
these are like from the 80s.
An 8-track.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, and that's probably all it is it's just another brand.
Yeah.
I think they made cassette tapes originally as well, but that was kind of the idea. And so that glass shattering, it's such a cheap reference. I like to think that Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan are better educated and like they do better research to be like, look at this blank CD, let's do that. But that's my Southeast Michigan upbringing there for you.
Right.
We had a lot of burned.
He was in Chicago, so
burned CDs.
Yeah. Did you see the after credits sequence?
I did.
Yeah. So Armistice cuts her arm off.
Yeah, and goes after. I'm assuming she still gets put down.
Yeah, probably.
I think the implication is that they kind of will put her down, but she's taken down.
One dude was freaked out enough to run away, but
I think that the idea was kind of she comes at him with a knife, and I kind of just got the vibe that she does die. It was just kind of a fun teaser.
Yeah,
that she's going to go down swinging.
Yep.
No, I guess I shouldn't say fun because it was pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, Hector, the blood all over her face.
Hector's moment was pretty cool. Hearing all the bullets pinging against the elevator door, I was like, that's pretty sweet.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, I forgot to mention this, but in the scene where Maeve's body gets recreated, one of the things that led me to realize that is that they're putting we see Armistice without her tattoo on, and they have to put the tattoo on her.
Oh.
They talk about how Hector didn't have time to give Hector his scar yet.
Yep.
Yeah, so the idea that they have to add those elements on whenever these bodies get damaged beyond repair.
It's on their rap sheet. They have to hit the checklist.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
It makes you wonder if the tattoo or the scar are a little bit different from time to time, depending on who's reassembling them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of a fun idea.
So I don't know that there's too much more to talk about. I think that about wraps up this episode. But obviously there's a lot to talk about, and I do want to delve into more general thoughts and other ideas that come up over the next couple days, sometime next week.
Yeah, we'll have to. I'll have to see how much of it I can rewatch between now and the next episode.
Yeah, I'll probably go back and hunt through a few burning questions and things that I have in my mind at the moment to see if I can notice anything else. But all in all, phenomenal season of television.
Fantastic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know this hit both of our radars early on, and we were like, we really have to watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been, you really have to play Fallout 4 to some more completion though. Seriously, because the plot in the story in that game.
There's a PS4 Pro update coming for it shortly, so I will.
Oh, cool!
I will check that out when it hits. I do want to get back to it.
Oh man!
So
yeah, you'll be cracking up for sure.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody that is listening to us. This is the most successful show that we've ever had on our podcast network, and it's because of you guys that are listening. And I'm personally very happy that you find our opinions and ideas worth listening to.
Yeah, same here. This has been potentially my favorite show we've done, just because the material is so dense.
Yep.
It's really fun to just sink your teeth into
and we felt that way about Preacher too, but I feel like even this kind of
Preacher's a very different animal, and Preacher also has comic book roots as well, and that show I think has there's a fun hook in that Alex has never read it and I've read it a couple times.
Yeah.
So we have very different viewpoints, and it's fun. It's fun for me to kind of be the...
You get to be the smug book reader. You get to see my wheels spinning.
Exactly, yeah. And that's really fun.
Yeah.
It's hopefully it shows through in the material.
I think so.
Our show.
I think so. So
yeah, the co-creator and artist, Steve Dillon, passed away probably about a month and a half or so ago.
Yeah. And
it didn't strike me until my probably second read-through of the series just how much amazing visual... how many amazing visual moments there are in that book. There are some really just breathtaking moments, and I'm hoping a lot of those are going to start to come out in the show as well. Yeah. Not that the show's been ugly by any means, but there's a few just, and a lot of them are getting posted in memoriam of him after he died, and it kind of reminded me again of what a fantastic story that is as well. Yeah. So I'm very excited for that to return. Absolutely.
So if this is your last stop with us for now, I hope you do come back next week, but even if you don't, thank you for listening. We've been very happy to have you along for the ride. And please go check out our other shows at the Midwest Podcast Network. Go to MidwestPodcastNetwork.com to look into those. We've got stuff about video games, horror movies, and other TV shows. There's a big backlog of Midwest Film Nerd stuff for you to listen to if you want to go and...
With lots of genuine laughter.
Yes.
And
great camaraderie.
Informal show structure.
Yes.
Games.
Yes. Much less structured than this.
And it'll prove, too, that if you write in, we will talk about it, and we will get to know you, and we will have you on our show.
Yes, we will. This is the first time that I've ever had so much stuff, so much feedback to talk about that I, like, it's absolutely stuff that we're going to talk about next week. So if you didn't hear me talk about it here, we will talk about it next week for sure.
Yeah, and don't be like me, because I listen to more podcasts now than I used to.
Yeah.
And I continually, something will stand out in my mind, and I'll be like, I should write into them about that, or I have an opinion, that sort of thing. But I am, jaded enough or whatever to think that, they won't get to it. That's what it's like when you tweet to somebody famous or whatever, and they don't respond, or no, you don't get any traction off of it, and you're just kind of like, I just wanted to know that we won't do that. We will gladly
if we don't, if for some reason you think your thing slipped through the cracks, know that at least my eyes and probably Nick's eyes have seen it too, because basically whenever I get something, even if I don't read it on the air, I usually send a picture of it to Nick or something.
My phone usually today was pretty active while I was at work. I was seeing a lot of images and stuff come through of what people are saying, and that's super rewarding, and that makes us want to keep going.
Totally. Knowing people are listening to us it's a big
and you guys factor. and everyone always has great observations and great questions. Totally. It's fun to just keep the discussion going, because we're doing this because we like talking about it. Like this is our built-in excuse to sit down and be like, holy shit, Westworld, right? Because we're not 22 years old anymore. We don't have as much time as we used to have, and so we
can't hang out on Saturday and just muse about
we have to
what the new Dark Knight movie is going to be about.
We have to go run errands and go to the Home Depot and Bed Bath & Beyond.
Rake the leaves and put up the Christmas decorations and all that kind of stuff. So anyway.
So join us. Come hang out with us and write in.
Yes, we love having you here. You can find more episodes of our podcast on westworld.fm. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play Music. We're Westworld FM on Twitter, and you can email us westworldfm@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on HBO's Westworld so we can read them on our show. Send us corrections, observations, or anything regarding Westworld or our podcast. That's it for our recap episodes this season. We are very excited to figure out what next season holds, but before that, we are going to do a brief feedback show and just kind of a season wrap-up. So return for that next week, but until then, may you rest and have a deep and dreamless slumber.